Are you an audiophile? Are you? Are you really an audiophile? Okay, so if you are an audiophile, maybe sometime at a certain point you have reflected on specific topics, specific aspects regarding music, the way music is played back, the way we listen, different kinds of questions that I think an audiophile, or in general whoever is after high fidelity, is interested in quality music reproduction and the music itself, because they are strictly intermingled, should ask themselves at a certain point in life. Let's try to take a look at a few and I'll give you some reflections on this. Are you ready? Strange episode. Let's go. Okay guys, actually there are many questions that I ask myself. Okay, this is not something to somehow criticize you guys or audiophiles or whoever's watching this video. No, it's something in the process that regards myself, that I ask myself and that I confront also with other people clearly. And I think it's something we all should do. It just enhances our awareness of this passion and the good, the light side of it and the dark side of it, okay? Because there are both present actually, the demons and the angels. Okay, I'm sure there are many more. In fact, I'm sure you are going to share your own questions that you ask yourself or to your friends or your community, your circle, whatever it is, and I'm truly interested in that. Please put them here below in the comments. This is probably going to be a first episode. I hope we can do more because I think it's something interesting. But let's dive in. Okay, first question, something that we actually hear many times around here and there in forums, videos and things like that. Do you listen, you, me, do you listen to music or are you listening to gear? Now this is a huge question and it does make sense. I usually answer myself both. Yes, it's not only about music. That is true. That is true. Because as an audiophile, I really take pleasure in audio, in all its manifestations. I did a video on sound, on audiophilia, we could say. Here is a link. You're going to find all the links in the video description for a more in-depth chat about that. But apart from that, it is both. And as I was saying, as a maniac of audio, I do tend to put attention also in the audio aspects, the pure audio aspects. And that also brings you clearly towards an analysis of the technical aspects. And hence, you're going to pay a lot of attention on your gear. But the ultimate goal, I think, at least for me, is music, okay? To enjoy my music. Especially when we're talking about specific types of genres. Because if you are mainly focused on, I would say, rock or heavy metal or hip-hop or things like that, where simply it's not an inferior type of music. Obviously, I love rock. I mean, rock 70s, the rock of the 70s or the 80s, the 90s are just something that I die for. But we must admit that the nuances, the timbre, the transients that come out in high quality and more simple recordings are not present there. They can't be. It's impossible. Also, like, I think symphonic music, I mean, it's a wall of sound and you're missing some details, even though you have transients and you have incredible dynamics there. But that's a different story. Compression, unfortunately, that is something we all hate. There's no question you have to pose yourself. So, turning back to the beginning of this question, As I said, the answer is both, because I sometimes completely focus on music because I finally reached a point where I'm satisfied of my system, so I can detach that problem and concentrate on music. And that happens for a while. Then clearly the bug, the little monkey, climbs up your shoulder and starts rattling you because you want to upgrade, you want to change something, you want to just try to do better, or simply try to change things, as I said before, to have a different perspective, which is something part of this passion, interesting and worthwhile. In fact, this is something that's going to come out in the next questions. Okay, let's proceed, otherwise it's going to be too long, this video. Our next, something I wanted to say actually, that a subscriber said once, which I wrote down, which is very interesting, connected to this first question, is he said, I don't want my system to drive my taste, okay? Meaning it's very dangerous to go too much towards the other side, only gear or mainly gear oriented, where you just take pleasure when you finally achieved that perfect reconstruction of that horn, of that voice, you just to impress your friends or something like that, okay? No, we always have to remind that the final goal is to achieve a pleasure, an experience full of pleasure, and that just brings us joy. That's the ultimate goal, which can be achieved also taking care of the technical part, but ultimately to enjoy our music. Okay, let's pass to our second question. Second question is something I have asked myself and proposed on this channel several times, is, are we truly listening to music? Okay, now I did a video some time ago, actually at the beginning, terrible audio, but as I always say, because I cite this many times, the content is still valid. Here is a link where I suggest what are the problems and the solutions to do a critical listening, okay? An in-depth, correct, we could say, listening experience. But that's something different. I'm trying with this question to address the issue correlated to the fact that a lot of times we are not focusing on the music. We do not take our time to enjoy it. Maybe we spent a lot to that record, to that CD, to that piece of component, to that DAC, whatever it is. We put the music and then we go off to do something else. As Steve Guttenberg recently said in a great interview on the Jazz Bums channel, I'll link it here below, he said for him, an audiophile, at least the first distinction, is somebody that sits down and listens. And I agree. I mean, that is absolutely one important point. If you don't do that, and you don't do it naturally because you want to do it, I do it practically every day. I really enjoy it, and when I can't, I suffer. So I think I fall in that category just for that. And apart doing that, also doing it in the correct way. Well, not correct is a bad word. In just a certain way that you are truly listening, enjoying also what you are hearing, perceiving with your body, with your ear, with your brain, the whole experience, and not just as background music, not as a single song here and there, a playlist. I mean, understand the album, understand the artist, understand the sonics, the recording, the different parts of this. I went more in depth in that video. Take a look at it. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, in this first part, I'm focusing a little more on music, afterwards more on gear. And another question is, did I explore and understand the difference between, now we're going more towards vinyl and in some cases CDs, between originals and reissues? Okay, so we're not talking about new music, which is clearly coming out now. There's no comparison. But as we know, the vast majority of music that is bought and listened is old catalog music. So it does make a lot of sense to question ourselves about this. Because we must remember that mastering, apart from compression, has changed very much. It's normal. It's something that happens each decade, we could say, each 5 years almost. And a lot of times, even if a reissue is very high quality, everything has been taken great care to do the optimal product, there is just a different way to release and remaster that specific album in comparison to the originals. What do I have in my mind now? Well, the huge difference between those amazing rock, funk, jazz, soul albums of the 70s, for example. Also the 80s, but mainly the 70s, I would say. If you compare them now, a lot of times the reissues, even if done properly, are just flat. They don't have that dynamics. They don't have that aggressive, almost, type of mastering that just makes everything so juicy, real, and engaging. But apart from this, this may be only a section of this discourse, of this aspect. It is important to understand, experience what is the difference of different decades, of different types of music, the original releases, mainly vinyl, I would say, but also the AAD CDs or ADD CDs, very old ones, the first ones, the best ones. I also covered this in another video. Here's a link. Link is also here below. And with compared to what is coming out now. Because we must do that, absolutely. Otherwise, we don't understand what is taking place, what we're losing, what we're gaining. Okay, very important. Let's proceed. Okay, our next point is focused on something that it's quite dangerous, that I constantly repeat myself because I slip in it. What am I talking about? Is do you FOMO? Do you know what FOMO is? I'm sure in many cases you are affected by it. The FOMO is the fear of missing out. Yes, I mean, when all those incredible jazz releases or those Deutsche Grammophon releases or, I don't know, those special remastered high-fidelity audiophile releases of rock, 45 RPM come out, and they keep coming out from all the directions, and the series keeps on growing, and you know that they're not going to reissue them in the near future, and maybe they're going to cost twice as much, or maybe you're losing, they're not going to reprint it anymore, and blah, blah, blah. All this creates anxiety, and a lot of times, mechanically, we buy. We buy. And a lot of times, some would say it's an investment, but a lot of times, maybe we're just going to listen to that once, maybe not even once, and just put it on the shelf. Now, even space at a certain point is a problem. So even each little single purchase counts. So, and this is something, once again, I'm repeating myself. Don't get all the tone poets. Don't get all the Rhino high fidelity. Evaluate. Fortunately, we can if we don't know perfectly the album. Maybe you already have a good version of it, a decent version. It doesn't have to be always the top. And enjoy what we have. Once again, I'm telling myself. Let's proceed. Okay, now I'm going to go through a series of questions based on did I explore and understood? Did I explore and understood? First one is, did I explore and understood the difference between tubes and transistors? Okay, now we're diving a little more on gear. Clearly, this question and the following are not necessary to consider yourself an audiophile. Absolutely. But I think that if you are really inside this and you are exploring specific parts. Talking about music, talking about gear, approaches, methods of listening, techniques of creating the perfect environment. I don't know. In any case, enhancing your playback experience, you have to start to consider, you should at least, some questions, some aspects in order to gain as much experience as possible and make the correct, right solution for you, okay? There isn't one correct solution, absolute solution, okay? The absolute answer, the correct objective answer. No, absolutely. This is important. It's something subjective, something for our own enjoyment, but aware. And this is one of the first points. The difference between tubes and transistors. A lot of times I have the impression that who is 100% for one isn't completely aware of what is on the other side, okay? I did this also 10 or 15 years ago, but then I slowly started to invest, expand my knowledge, buy or rent or even borrow some gear, tube gear or solid state gear, absolutely, because they give you just a different approach, different experience, and you will start to understand things and hear things, and not necessarily one is better than the other. We all have opinions. I have my opinion, but that's not the point, okay? Let's proceed. Another point, similar to this, did I explore and understand the difference between vintage and modern gear? Oh boy. Oh boy. There is a wealth of people that are just scared to even try to buy vintage stuff. I partially understand that. There's a lot of problems involved. A lot of times you're going to have to service. Maybe it's not going to last that much. Maybe you overpaid something. It wasn't that, the value was incorrect, and then unfortunately you paid too much and you're not going to be able to resell it. But apart from this, it's the sonics, it's the approach, it's the amplification, it's even the type of source just changed. The cartridges, the phono preamps, the preamplifier, the amplifiers, the speakers, they all have a different sound signature. But I'm not talking about brands. I'm talking about approaches, philosophies, because there is the trends in specific years, decades, okay? Now we have a specific type of sound that we are chasing, or at least most people is chasing, where it has to be detailed, it has to be neutral, faithful, transparent, more transparent as possible, blah, blah, blah. But is that what we truly enjoy and like? It not necessarily. It has to be high fidelity, okay, as we all know, means faithful to the recording, not to live music, to the recording. And I agree on that, but we don't want, in most cases, I think we can agree that clinical, cold, ultra-detailed music is not something you enjoy. Sometimes it's even fatiguing. So something that connects with you. Maybe this connects with you, no problem. If you have some doubts, try to explore something else. As you know me, I like color, I like character, something that moves me. Maybe I'm not listening to the true, faithful thing, but it's something that just fills me up with joy and amusement, okay? And in fact, that is why I'm going down the rabbit hole of vintage more and more. Incredible things come out. Who follows me knows perfectly that I have this special passion for vintage. Also because there are solutions, there is technology that in some cases surpasses things done today. A few things just disappeared. We forgot how to do specific things. This clearly doesn't count for everything. No, clearly. I mean, if we're talking about, for example, digital DACs and things like that, and not only, we have amazing things now. But specific things, the way things were built, certain solutions, and who is following me knows exactly what I'm referring to, just have something special, at another level, and in some cases I would say almost objectively superior in sound to stuff that costs even 5-10 times more today. On the other side, we can't be only vintage, only narrow vision, dedicated to old stuff. No, because a lot of people do only that, and that is not correct either. We have to have a balance, and that is why I'm talking about the question that we should ask ourselves: do I explore and understand the differences and the potential of both old and new? Oh, and I forgot to mention something that I already said in a lot of videos. Clearly, if you really want to understand, explore, experience the true sound of vintage, you must pay attention to the machine, its condition, okay? You can't just listen to stuff like that. Maybe it's working, but it's not probably up to spec. It has to be serviced. Things has to be checked. For example, my Telefunken, I listened to it for years thinking it was very, very good. But people were ripping their hair off saying it's one of the best machines ever heard, and I never understood why until I finally brought the machine to a tech who brought it back to its perfect, even better condition than new. And oh boy, if my life changed considering reel to reel. It did, big time. So you really have to pay attention. It's a pain in the arse, but you have to be careful to this, because a lot of people are expressing their opinions on stuff that probably is not working correctly. Let's proceed. Okay, tough one up ahead. Banal at the same time. Did I understand and explore the differences, the good and the bad of digital and analog? Yes, I had to put this clearly. As you know, I enjoy both. I know my channel is Ana Dialogue, the dialogue on analog music reproduction, but I greatly enjoy digital. I want both in my life. I prefer analog, obviously, but digital, especially when you have the correct DAC and quality recordings, quality mastering, then it can really be top notch, absolutely. And for those who are more oriented toward one direction, you should at least try to explore, understand what is the fuss about the other side, okay? Because you can't just declare how perfect and good is digital, or you can't declare how warm, nice, and engaging is vintage without knowing the other part, perfectly knowing the other part. And it's not just to be coherent and speak in a conscious way. You're doing this also to gain knowledge, to better understand and appreciate certain aspects of both types of media. Let's proceed. Okay, next point. Probably not as important as the rest, but I highly recommend to gain some knowledge also in this sense. What am I talking about? Next question. Did I explore and understand what is involved in recording music? Okay, the other side, the production side, the creation side. Okay, we are all usually focused on playback. If you know, explore some aspects related to recording, you will gain a lot of knowledge and better understand certain things of your media, of the different solutions you adopt for playback, okay, for the consumer side. You just better understand what's happening also clearly in the mixing and mastering passages. So the two extremes are fundamental in order to explore and understand the whole chain. Absolutely. Okay, let's proceed. Next point, another gear point. Did I explore and understand the differences between speakers? Speakers are the most important and relevant component of your hi-fi system. Everything goes around them. A lot of people are not going to agree. That's my point of view. I think it's shared with many of you guys, speakers are paramount. And speakers are various type. There's so many types. And absolutely, I am not the guru in this sense because it's difficult to change speakers, especially the big ones. So I would like to explore many more than what I have. But I did a few, and especially I did different types. That's important. Meaning not only classic dynamic drivers, but also horn drivers, compression drivers, or electrostatic type of speakers, open baffle, you name it. I mean, two-way, three-way, four-way, super tweeters, subwoofers, all these different aspects. It's important. Explore them slowly, one step at a time, clearly, not all together. That's the fun, I would say, to slowly gain knowledge and better understand and appreciate, once again, what is happening in other situations, other components, and in your system, and train your ears to just have more your sound baggage, we could call it. Your sound memory will just gain a lot of info and process things in a different way, better way. Let's proceed. Another passage dedicated to, did I explore and understand? We could call them standalone components versus integrated. Now here we're going a little more in depth, meaning that a lot of times we almost give as granted or accept without thinking about it of parts of our system as a whole, as integrated, okay? Which can be even very simply a power supply, already putting or purchasing or finding or building also something with an external power supply, in many cases will reveal great detail, will give great pleasure in your experience. For example, or something clearly what I had in mind, more obvious, separates, meaning preamplifier and amplifier. If you've always explored integrated amplifiers, it's a good idea to try to explore something else, separates, and see, and trying to match different types, tubes, transistors, in the amplifier, and vice versa in the preamplifier. Everything is going to give you much more knowledge and insight in this fantastic passion. DACs, we always, all through the 90s, we were chasing, for example, the best CD player. Now, finally, where digital has really reached its maturity, we know that we just need a very simple transport and a top-notch DAC. That is, for example, a fundamental part, because the DAC was always inside, integrated in the player. No. And this is valid for so many things, even the phono preamp. In the past, it practically doesn't exist. It was always integrated in the preamplifier. One of the main purposes to have a preamplifier. No, a dedicated solution, 90% of cases, let's say, not always clearly, it's going to sound better. And that is valid for so many things. Extrapolate, separate, and they are going to sound fantastic in most cases. Try. Okay, last question. Something that I constantly ask myself that is important while building your system. There's never an end to it. Sometimes you do reach nirvana and you decide to find peace and drop everything. Congratulations if you did. Maybe you just got bored. There are various reasons, but something I do want to underline is the question, instead of upgrading and or spending more money, did I truly optimize what I have? Meaning not only the different components of my system, but how they work together, the synergy, the position, the room, the treatment in the room, the position of the speakers in the room. There's so many things that can be optimized without necessarily going to upgrade or do something like that. Tweaking is something very useful, once again, that doesn't cost that much and that sometimes can be really, really revealing, absolutely. And once again, gives you a better acquaintance with your system. Okay, guys, we've reached the end of this video. I'm probably going to do another one because I have many more questions that I want to share. Plus, I want to hear yours. Once again, please write them here below in the comments. We are interested, and maybe I'll do a dedicated video with your questions, your self-made questions. Okay, guys? Thank you again for watching, and remember, music is born analog. Hey there! If you are enjoying my content, please consider to subscribe. It's free, and it will help the channel tremendously. Also, don't forget to explore my prior videos. There's something for everyone. Welcome to the audiophile community.